We're going live, and cool. We should be live, but there's a little bit of a delay. So I want to make sure audio and quality is good. So if you are in the stream right now, I want to say thanks for stopping by the stream. I had Dan Simerman on from the IOTA team from 𝗕𝗏𝗡𝗙𝗧𝗛. And so as more people start to come in, let us know in the comment section if you can, how's the audio and how is the quality? It's a little bit different setup for me because there was a big thunderstorm last night where I live, and so all of our internet's completely down, so I had to use my phone. So
oh no.
Cornell Coleman says all good. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the feedback.
It's good quality. I mean, whatever phone you got, it's good quality. I wouldn't have even known.
Yeah, it's an iPhone 12 Pro.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for the feedback. I appreciate it. So I won't be able to probably get to too many questions because of I'm on my phone, so it'll be kind of hard to do. But at the same time, I try to read off some questions if anything is segments of what we're covering. And so as more people start to come in, hey Dan, kind of let the people know it's been about 4 or 5 months since last time you've been on the channel. And last time that was like around when the Firefly wallet came out for IOTA. So it's been some time, since we talked. So kind of let the people know who's Dan Simerman besides, 𝗕𝗏𝗡𝗙𝗧𝗛 for the IOTA team.
Yeah, it's great to be back. I loved the conversation we had a couple months ago. Yeah, I mean, so who am I? So my name is Daniel, and I've been in the space for a couple of years, and I've been really focused on helping IOTA expand in North America, and then most recently, really working on ecosystem work around our smart contracts. And we're kind of moving into a whole new era for the IOTA Foundation, but I also think for the crypto space in general, where really focusing on these more crypto native use cases. So thinking about decentralized finance, thinking about NFTs, thinking about these, decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs. I think what's really exciting about launching ISCP, so we just released ISCP beta, or smart contracts beta. And this is the first time now that we're seeing, our massive community. IOTA's got an incredible community, and we're quite technical. Finally, now having the tools to build out a lot of interesting smart contract applications. And I think what's even more exciting is that now they have a lot more independence, where they can build their own applications with their own communities, and even raising their own capital. So I think we're going to see a lot of like a flurry of activity. Whereas I think maybe it's been very easy to look at other projects and really get excited about their networks because of all the network activity that's happening as a result of smart contracts. So I'd say we're probably a couple weeks behind, a couple weeks behind some of the other projects that you're seeing now that are starting to pick up because they've got TVL, and is that TLV, TVL? And you're starting to see this kind of like independent activity happening. I think we're going to see the same thing in IOTA in a couple months.
Yeah. And so good segue to kind of let everyone know who's on the stream. We still got more people coming in. So the main 3 things that we're going to be covering in this video is the first thing, me and Dan, we're going to kind of talk about the overall market, kind of what's going on. Market's definitely pumping as we speak. Secondly, we're going to talk about the IOTA smart contracts and what's this do for IOTA. And then the third section we will dive into is how this sets IOTA up to win, in the future. And so before we kind of dive into the nitty gritty, and I guess a short sentence, Dan, how would you explain kind of your job description, kind of what's your main focus when it comes to the business side of IOTA?
Yeah, so the North America market is quite an interesting one, especially for a project that's based in Europe or has had its like roots in Europe. So a lot of my work is actually building relationships and seeing how we can get IOTA in the hands of as many groups as possible. And a lot of that's like behind the scenes work. It can take many months. So there's kind of like an interesting kind of balance between, talking with the big players here in North America, but then, while those negotiations and while those interactions are happening, also really thinking about IOTA's adoption in a more like distributed way. Right, so you definitely want to rely on these like centralized gatekeepers, right? Like the big exchanges, the big custody platforms, like all these groups that you definitely want to interact with. But then, there's also a case to be made that a lot of the big adoption is happening with groups that are now creating their own decentralized exchanges or have their own mechanisms that disintermediate these players. So while it's good to interact with them, you also want to find that balance where you're supporting both simultaneously. So I think with smart contracts, we're kind of in a position now to have our own DEXs and to really not be so reliant and dependent on these groups, but also realize kind of where they fit into a larger strategy. So that's really been my work. And something that's been relatively new is this space is moving so quickly, and I'd love to talk and explain some of the things that I'm seeing in the space now. But I think kind of part of my role going forward, I haven't done such a good job vocalizing it, but really like synthesizing all of the innovations that are happening in this space, right? There's so many things, everything from the metaverse to play to earn games to decentralized finance to NFTs. They're all starting to converge in a way that is really, really exciting. And I think that a lot of people, even like myself, that I came in a couple of years ago when it was a very different model for how to invest in the space, what to look for in a protocol. Why would you focus on one coin community over another? And I think that's starting to evolve so rapidly that the opportunity space is now kind of shifting. So really making sure that I understand that and then really embedding that into in the community and learning from what the community has to offer, but then also sharing these insights so that we're really well positioned to compete in the marketplace of ideas, right? Like why pick one protocol over another? I think it's going to have a lot to do with making the IOTA protocol available to the next great set of innovative groups that want to build on us.
Yeah. And so you kind of unpacked a lot for us there, Dan. And so let's kind of segue kind of briefly into the overall market. Currently, right now, where we are at 2.7 trillion is the overall crypto market cap. And if we look up, let me pull up IOTA here and just see what the current rank is. How do you feel about the overall market currently? Of course, we have the Bitcoin ETFs that kind of got launched as well, and everything else, more big financial institutions coming in. We have the pension now that said they're coming into the crypto space. So there's a lot of bullish catalysts that's been happening. And so kind of what are your thoughts and what is your take kind of the end of the year or this bull cycle?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the past couple of days. To me, it feels a little more like this is, and this might be like a little counterintuitive. I feel like this is more like end of 2016 rather than 2017. I think maybe a lot of people are thinking about the flurry of activity and maybe the volatility that we're seeing and making an assumption that this is like towards the end. But I wonder if this has actually created an environment where, Bitcoin is still in this price discovery mode where that creates an environment for other projects to maybe have more room to build and grow in a way that I think we kind of saw like at the end of 2016, 2017, where there was a lot of, new projects, a lot of ICOs, a lot of innovation. And then, coming into 2018, there was kind of like the big crash. I'm not preparing for a big crash. I mean, famous last words. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm not predicting anything, but I'm personally not preparing for a crash at like the end of the year. I wonder if we're not going to see something a little more sustained going into 2022 because of, like you said, because of like the institutional adoption, because of people taking the asset class a lot more seriously.
And so, question on that then. And so with the market being higher and going higher, reaching new all-time highs. So with that being said, do you think that we can still see, like when things pull back, rather to bear market or rather to just a hefty pullback as we start to climb back? I mean, history has shown for us to have some type of a bear market in the past, whereas the market is still developing. So I got a question for you. So as market hits all-time highs, do you think we can still see a 70 to 80%, dip. And the reason why I say that is because even with that being said, let's say Bitcoin hits 100K, 150,000. Even with the 70 to 80% dip, we're still higher than we currently were. So even still, with that massive dip, depending on how much we go up, we will still be higher than where we currently were. What is your take on that?
I mean, I think everyone's kind of assuming Bitcoin's going to hit 100,000. I think that seems to be like, I don't know if it's priced in, but like I think that seems to be like assumed. It would be interesting to see like Bitcoin maybe over a 4-day period towards like the very end, maybe climb up to like 300K, 400K, and then like do that retracement. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I don't know. I think what'll even be more interesting. I think that the two interesting questions are, do the crypto markets really decouple? Like if there is a big drawback with like the traditional capital markets, are we going to see digital assets act as like that safe haven we've always thought it might be? Or are people going to be so scared that they're going to try and pull out of everything? But with with inflation and maybe like a continued increase of that trend, do people look at this asset class and see it as something to protect their wealth or something that could potentially harm it? I think that's going to be like a really big question. I think the other question is also, do we even look at this entire market as one market anymore, or do we maybe think of this more as like a lot of different markets, right? Like, is the NFT market the same as the crypto market? Right? I read a paper a while ago that said something along the lines of like, the NFT space might even be more decoupled from the crypto space than we think. And there might even be like each NFT sub-market. So like, Zed Run's market of digital horses, Axie Infinity's market of, potions or whatever. These all might be sub-markets that have their own market dynamics that are independent of either other NFT markets. So it might be a little premature to even say that a drawdown of Bitcoin might even have an impact on other areas like, like NFTs or play to earn, or even specific DAOs. Because now we're going into an environment where DAOs have like revenue. They're like generate, like we've never seen an environment, or at least I don't remember seeing one in the past where, you could participate in a DAO governance token and now earn, constant revenue from the application that's running on that smart contract. So I think we're moving away from this like purely what's the word? Not skeptical. Like speculative, like this purely speculative environment where it's like, I'm holding this token because I think the price is going to go up, just not even under any fundamentals. Like it might be because it's part of one of the biggest games in the world, or it might be because it's part of a smart contract ecosystem that's generating fees for the holder, and same for the DAO. So in that environment, does that, create a mindset where people just sell because of a scary market environment, or do they maybe have different mindset and go, well, look, I'm generating, $1 million a month from this one DAO. Why would I sell my tokens? So there might be a couple more kind of things to think about in that way.
Yeah. And so now let's kind of dive into the smart contracts that, everyone's been wanting to know about. And I got, quite a few things down here that I kind of took away from, some key details of it, what's it going to bring to the game. And so I just want to kind of read off a few things and let me know if I'm correct or incorrect on that. And then also expand on that as well based off of, what you can talk about. And so one thing that I got from, smart contracts being listed, not being available, is that's a layer 2, for IOTA, but it still has the backward compatibility to work with layer 1, which gives it that full true security. Also, it's fully compatible with Ethereum's EVM, and it's also compatible with MetaMask. Not only that, it'll be cross-chained. It also allows pretty much almost feeless smart contracts for each chain, depending on how they write the smart contract, because it's able to still operate on layer 1, even though it's on layer 2 smart contracts, which I think is very phenomenal in my opinion. And so a few other things I wrote down is it also has the base layer programmable tokenization for, like, as you were talking about, games, NFTs, dApps, the entire metaverse. And so you'll be able to pretty much, move different assets, from whatever chain using IOTA. And I think that is massive. And even besides, of course, it's no stranger that IOTA is, behind just a tad when it comes to smart contracts, but because of the potential is so large when it comes to smart contracts and what it's going to do for the world, I think it couldn't have came at a better time for IOTA. And so a few other things is that I figured out was that it will be fully composable, which will allow other smart contracts to operate with other smart contracts. So pretty much it's building its, in a sense, it's kind of building its own oracle within smart contracts. So kind of talk to us about everything I uncovered, because there's a lot to really talk about.
Yeah, I might get in trouble because I might not like know every like technical detail, but yeah. So and just to be completely clear, like, we released this on the test net, and we can still actively build, and anything that gets built we'll be able to port over when it's ready. So we're building the ecosystem now as the network is being refined. So I think that's a really just an important point to make. But yeah, I think what's very unique about our architecture is that IOTA really wants to create the best distributed ledger that's possible, right? So what's been floated around is this like, Nakamoto consensus on a DAG, right? That's not a blockchain. So I think that's a very unique thing that our team is trying to do, and not many other protocols are really attempting this, right? Maybe they're trying to build a faster horse, or maybe do something like slightly more unique. But having smart contracts that are EVM compatible, that are scalable, they can be shardable because you can run multiple chains on top of ISCP, or the smart contract framework. It creates a lot of flexibility, right? So rather than on a layer one where you have the entire network having to come to consensus on a single contract, you can now have independent chains running on a layer two that are secured by a really strong layer one, which is IOTA. So in that kind of that architecture, I think it just provides a lot more flexibility and opportunity. And then to your point about being feeless, I think this is also quite powerful. We're one of the only protocols that's offering feeless smart contracts. And that doesn't mean that every smart contract is going to be feeless. It just means you have the flexibility that you can start at zero, and then any sort of open marketplace that you want to define or designate can be developed. So if I want to create if I kind of want to create like a DAO structure where if I have a smart contract, I can set a fee, and then the validators can decide whether they want to accept that contract based on that fee. And now you've got this just like way more dynamic environment for smart contracts. And because it's EVM compatible, we're gonna have interoperability with other like EVM compatible chains. That might take a little while, but because we're virtual machine agnostic, you can have multiple EVMs running on different chains within ISCP, and then they can all interact with each other. So that's like a very powerful component. Whereas what we're seeing with Ethereum now is that, if you're now moving over to another scaling solution like Polygon, or if you're moving to something like Optimism, the smart contracts on Optimism and Polygon can't natively interact with one another. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. People might be building bridges, but like, I don't think it's trivial for like Sushi Swap on Polygon to necessarily interact with a DEX or like another bridging solution on Optimism yet, but I'm sure that's in the works.
Yeah, and so another thing I thought was very interesting is that with the smart contracts, because with the smart contracts on IOTA is pretty much their own blockchain for whatever protocol. And so with that being said, what I thought was interesting based off of my research is, say, a certain protocol, or let's just say Ethereum, for example, can't get scale out of one smart contract. Because IOTA uses the Tangle technology, it doesn't use blocks, it doesn't use chains, and it builds horizontally. They can just build smart contracts on smart contracts to get the scale that they need. And can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because I think that was very, very interesting that I found.
Yeah, so you're gonna have these validator committees that are running their own kind of smart block, like their own chains on top. And so that creates a level of scalability that you might not see on any layer one. So you're anchoring those those states from the validators that are validating the chain onto the layer one. So so you're not really like congesting, you're not congesting the entire network with a single contract, which is what you're seeing on other chains. So you could hypothetically have a scenario where you've got multiple committees that are all running their own chains, and now they're not being congested by what's happening on the other chains, and then they can still communicate with one another and interact with one another, so that you kind of have this, like, I believe it's called like horizontal scaling in that way. And then the assets as well that are created once IOTA assets are available. And if anyone super technical is listening to this and I'm botching this, I apologize. But you'll be able to interact with those assets. So those assets will be able to represent other things like, you know, tokenized assets like wrapped Ethereum or wrapped Bitcoin. And I think you'll be able to do kind of interesting things like what you're seeing with like Republic Protocol, where you could wrap an asset, lock it into a contract, or whether permissioned or permissionless, you could lock it into a vault, and then you could have that representation of an asset on IOTA, and you can have you can transact feelessly using that asset, which is really exciting.
Interesting. And so, with that being said, when will the full beta, you know, be done and will just be fully launched? Is there any like a ETA on that, or?
Yeah, so the beta is live. So the beta is out. You can deploy a smart contract onto a chain. You can even port over well-known Ethereum projects. So like Curve Finance, someone from our community has already said that they're going to like fork it over. So that can happen today. I don't know if I can publicly say what's happening, just because I want to respect the team, and I think the team has like a way that they want to structure it. But what I can say is that I think what's incredibly exciting now is that we can now actively build today. So people, the additional work that needs to be done in the future, you'll be able to port over relatively easily to once tokenized assets and once IOTA native assets are like available. So I think that's really the most important point, is that now ecosystem building is happening, and it can happen now. So I think we're going to start seeing, like with 𝗤𝗏𝗏, which is a great project in our ecosystem. We've got an NFT marketplace that's already in the works. I'm talking to a handful of launch pads that want to start launching. So this is happening now, and I think one of the competitive advantages that IOTA has is that we have such a big community that's been waiting for so long to start building that I think maybe unlike other projects where they needed to pay groups to start building initially, we have people that want to start building because they see that it's an exciting opportunity. There's going to be grant programs. There's going to be investment groups in the ecosystem that want to invest in them. So there's going to be a lot of support for them, both economically, but also, with the right expertise, given the right tooling and information. We think that projects that come into the IOTA ecosystem are going to have a better chance of success, because we're not just throwing money at them. It's really a holistic approach. So the goal is that people start building today. Start porting over to our EVM, start playing around with it, see the ease of use of the protocol, how great it is to use, and then really grow with us as we are going to like final state.
And so when we talk about smart contracts and IOTA, people say they're late to the game, but we talked about with so much potential with smart contracts still being developed, still being unfolded. How does this position IOTA, to position themselves to win in this very competitive market?
Yeah, so I think, again, I think we even talked about this in our last interview, but I think that we are taking two approaches simultaneously. I think that we are focused on quote unquote real world adoption, although I don't know if you can even call it real world adoption anymore. But we're focused on use cases that are maybe outside of traditional crypto ones. So working with projects like the European, like groups like, what's it, EBSI, we have these great relationships with serious players that want to use blockchain in industrial use cases, ways that could touch billions of people. But then we're also now, getting into use cases that are a little more crypto centric and a little more crypto native. And I think this is where a lot of innovation is happening with smart contracts and with DAOs and things like this. So I think that because we're positioned for both, where I think a lot of other competitors are really just focused on one or the other, right? It's either like we're just an enterprise blockchain or we're just caring about, DeFi. I think that we have a way broader mandate. And really that mandate is building a bridge between the digital and the physical. And I think what's really important, and this is just my own personal take, this isn't like a, definitive, vision statement for IOTA necessarily, but I think as we move into a environment where, Facebook says they want to, become a metaverse company in 5 years, where groups are saying that they want to create virtual environments for people. I think we need to really take a look and think about what that means, right? Do we want a virtual and digital world that is primarily owned by corporations, or do we want them participating in it as, actors similar to ourselves? So I think really what I'd like to see IOTA continue to grow into is, being this technology that can bridge both, where we can become the processing layer for a lot of these new environments, these metaverse environments, these like open gaming worlds, these environments where a lot of what is it called? A lot of like work will happen, right? So like the future of work might be in virtual environments. The future of industrialization could happen in virtual environments. So I would love to see us really being that processing layer, so that IOTA is always about being open and free. So really being the best distributed ledger that's scalable and flexible for the next billion people to come on board. And I think we're going to see that in those next great areas. So in DAOs, in gaming, I think that's also going to be a really, really big play. I think we're seeing kind of two things happening simultaneously. We're seeing a lot of crypto applications take on more gaming characteristics, but we're also seeing a lot of games come into these decentralized environments and take on more crypto properties. So they might have NFTs, or they might have kind of decentralized finance components. You might get yield for holding an app, but having that composability and having that interoperability where you can take one item from one environment and turn it into another, or bring it to another completely different game. I think that IOTA is going to be really good to support that. And I think that our smart chains are going to be really, really powerful for something like that.
Yeah. And I think this is a great segue question. And are you open to answering a few questions as well as we kind of talk more about IOTA?
Yeah, of course.
To the community. So one great question, and this is because don't get me wrong, IOTA is a technical project. So you definitely got to understand, blockchain and things like that to really understand what IOTA is going after. And so Bob Hayes says, what is IOTA's unique selling point? So in simplest terms, because of course we've already given a lot on why IOTA is IOTA, but for someone that still may be new or still may be scratching their head about the project, what would you say? Why is this a unique selling point for IOTA?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Bob. I would say that it still is very much that we're one of the only feeless protocols. And as we grow into IOTA 2.0, the goal is to build an architecture that supports a token, but isn't always reliant on one. And why it's really important, Bob, is that we talked about like breaking in and out of the crypto world, right? So you've got real world use cases. We're in a position now where, many organizations around the world still don't feel comfortable using a digital asset. And many of them might not even need to use one if it's for a strictly, data-based application. So what's really, really cool about IOTA is that the architecture is set up in such a way that you can send just database transactions without a token. And that's a really powerful component of the system that almost no other system can do. You'll often hear other protocols say, we're very cheap, or we're cheaper relative to X. but almost none of them are completely feeless. So that's one of our biggest selling points. And the second one, and what I think is why it's taken us, maybe a little bit longer than other projects, is that we have a completely different architecture. It's completely unique relative to a lot of our competitors, and we're really trying to push the boundaries and create one of the best distributed ledgers that we can for the next billion users that want to come on board and use decentralized applications and distributed technologies.
And so another question, and I think this would help as well with the smart contracts that's coming up. He says, why can't we earn yield on IOTA? Now, is this something that's going to be able to be implemented with smart contracts now that that's available, on IOTA?
Yeah, so there are some centralized services that allow you to earn yield, and we've been in talks with them for a while, and it's no not mystery, but secret that we were trying to talk with a couple, and then we had like the custody platform we were talking with, they were sold and we weren't aware of it, so that's kind of been a little tricky. But yeah, no, I think again, like the cool thing about having IOTA smart contracts is now we can have things like this. These things have traditionally been very like crypto centric, like yield. So I think the community is going to start building these features and these products. So I think we'll see things like that. I think we'll see some really novel, probably applications that third-party community members build that bake yield into. So if like you stake the IOTA token, maybe you'll earn maybe you'll earn more IOTA, maybe you'll earn that project's native token. So I think we're going to see a lot of things like that, and I think it's going to make the token more desirable. And I think it's going to give it more functionality to actually use in real applications. So whether that's things like stable coins or like a DAO-based membership, I think we're going to see really cool things where maybe a DAO tries to raise $1 million worth of IOTA tokens, and then those tokens earn yield based on the applications that are built inside of that DAO. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. And so I know you can only say so much about this, but is there anything in the talks as far as like for the US, as far as IOTA being listed on any other exchanges? Because right now, of course, you can buy it on the Voyager app, which is an up and coming, extremely popular, crypto platform. Is there any talks with, Coinbase, Binance US, or just Binance in general, or Gemini or KuCoin? Is there anything that's being talked about where IOTA will be listed, maybe this year, next year on the roadmap or anything like that?
Yeah. So all I can say is that, what can I say? Let's just say that I talk to a lot of people. Okay. That's part of my role is like talking to a lot of groups, and, some things are just kind of out of your control. Like there's some processes that just take a lot of time. There's others that, are a little more active. It depends maybe on your backing as a project. So I will say that I think that people looked at our Chrysalis update and didn't see like immediate progress and made some assumptions, but our technology is now way easier to integrate, and I think that the best we can do is just continue what we're doing, and then like I said, build that bridge so that once these things eventually happen, once they get onto these bigger platforms, we won't just be twiddling our thumbs waiting, right? We can do a lot of other things in parallel. So we can start to build DEXs. We can start to build other markets for better access to all the different applications and assets that are going to be living on top of ISCP and the IOTA smart contract network. So I think these really go hand in hand. And there's maybe even an argument to be made that the more activity we see in this domain, in this area, so raising capital, more capital coming into the IOTA ecosystem, more developers coming to build, it might make us more desirable to maybe these groups that they've been looking at us actively in talks with us, and looking at supporting us. So I think that's really, I think what I'm the most excited about is, like I said, with smart contracts, we finally have something that I think a lot of groups have been looking at and maybe even wanting to integrate with. So I see this as like an incredibly exciting and like important and valuable time for us in that regard. And I think it's gonna kind of have like a compounding effect. So that was my way of not saying specifically who I'm talking to, but yeah, I mean, it's always an active dialogue, and you just have to be like Zen about it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you at least, saying that. We can kind of read between the lines on that. And so about IOTA, someone asks, do we have a decentralized exchange coming this year for IOTA?
Yes, I mean, we already have a couple decentralized exchanges that are building on IOTA. So we have 𝗕𝗤𝗧, which is a great one. I know we've got one or two others, and then there's a couple kind of decentralized exchanges that are cross-chain or multi-chain that I'm talking with to see if we can get IOTA integrated. So yeah, I think that's going to be a really important step for us, and I think that's also going to just kickstart our DeFi, or not DeFi, but like a lot of our like decentralized applications, right? Because now they'll be able to raise their own capital, they'll be able to launch their own tokens, and I don't think we quite get the significance of that. I think that's going to have a huge impact on the IOTA ecosystem, and like it's only just starting, and it's kind of like a secret. But I think the crypto world at large is starting to notice. We're starting to see people, take a look at us in that way.
Yeah, and one thing as we talk about IOTA's development, well, IOTA was built for the Internet of Things, right? And so when we look at the development of the Internet of Things, there is still so much to unfold. And I think, for investors that may be a little unaware of, Internet of Things with, machines talking to machines, exchanging data, microtransactions, and that's what IOTA's able to do. One thing I thought was very interesting is that it's one of the 5 to 6 coins that is, I guess has the say-so by the ISO 20022. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because I think that is massive when it comes to what coins or what projects the government may choose to use, when the smoke really clears.
Yeah, so I can't speak too much to the that specific standardization group, but what I can say is that we've been committed to standardization for a very long time, and it's always been really a competitive advantage of ours. We think is that working with standards bodies and making out a standard as we're building is going to be really important, and it has that kind of multiplying effect. Right? How do we build out strategies so that people can pick up our technologies independently of coming to the foundation and asking us can we build this on this? Do we feel comfortable? So I definitely think that's a marker. And I will say something as well. IOTA is I think one of the best ledgers for kind of the future of IoT and the machine economy. But I also think there's a lot of ground to be taken as just like one of the best general purpose distributed ledgers as well. So, thinking about other blockchain use cases, other crypto use cases, I think we're going to probably see our protocol broaden out because it's going to come to be probably one of the best designed ones. But that's me shilling because I genuinely believe in that. But I think that's what's also like a really exciting is this new era that we're embarking in, is that like we're very IoT centric and very machine economy focused because we think we can enable those. But I think there's also so much opportunity to expand upon that we can also attack.
Yeah, and kind of you said something earlier, and I didn't want to cut you off, but you were talking about when we asked the question, the unique selling point for IOTA, and it was their Tangle technology, where they don't use the normal blockchain tech. They use Tangle, where they don't use blocks or chains. And so, can you kind of, I guess, break down in simplest terms from your mouth, like what what makes Tangle, I guess, better in some ways than your normal blockchain tech, or why did IOTA choose to go with Tangle instead of just the normal blockchain tech? Because in the simplest terms, it's easier to scale. It kind of limits some of those interoperable problems that blockchain has. But in your words, what would you say why IOTA chose Tangle?
Yeah, so I think in 2015, and I again, like, this is my understanding, but I could be a little wrong, but my understanding was that in 2015, the team came together and realized that the promises of what a blockchain was capable of, or what it could do, wasn't really kind of overlapping with the reality of how it was being used. And that in order for blockchains to scale and to support real world use cases, maybe a different design was in order. So what they wanted to do is that they wanted to build a distributed ledger that wasn't based on blocks, but instead had a more scalable architecture that could scale to the number of transactions that were being generated, rather than having these fixed blocks that said, once you have X amount of transactions, then the block is full. And then it creates a marketplace for transaction fees. So I think what we're seeing with Ethereum right now is that, the market for block space is incredibly expensive, and that's pricing out a lot of people to use the network. It's also pricing out maybe a lot of real world applications to even deploy onto the network. And so what you're seeing now is that you're seeing second layers like Polygon or like Binance Smart Chain, which are maybe forks of the Ethereum blockchain, but they're while they're still using blocks, their trade-off is maybe that they're not as decentralized, right? So Binance might have I think they have like a fixed set of validators that are relatively small. So the idea is that how do we build an architecture that is both, it's kind of hokey, but it like solves the trilemma, right? So like how do you solve scalability and decentralization, and then what's the third one? Scalability, decentralization, and
interoperability. Is that what you're looking for?
No, it's not interoperability. Speed. Did I say speed? Yeah, like speed. And how do you do that in like an efficient way? So that's really always been our bread and butter, and we wanted to just create something that was a lot more flexible for real world use cases. And I think that we've seen that. I think that's why we've seen so much incredible adoption in the kind of traditional world of business, is because they look at our architecture and they see how unique it is relative to a lot of the other blockchains that they've seen. And that's why I think also kind of as we expand even past IoT and look at like other areas, I think that position is going to hold true, that they're going to see kind of the new IOTA distributed ledger design that we're building, right? This new like consensus algorithm that we're designing, and having Nakamoto consensus on a DAG, I think that's going to be really, really powerful. And things like this take time. We're not just forking another blockchain design and then tinkering with the variables. It's quite unique in that way.
Yeah. And so as we get ready to get closer to the end of this stream, one thing I wanted to kind of talk about is, I think, as long as IOTA continues to keep doing what they're doing, which I truly believe they will, because of their use case, because of what they're going after, as the world and blockchain continues to develop, so will IOTA, and they will continue to get bigger because of their use case. And prime example, you look at certain crypto coins. As more adoption comes in, investors has to buy crypto somewhere and sell crypto somewhere. So for platforms that may have, an actual crypto coin, over time, they're going to see value because of the adoption alone. And I think that's the same scenario when it comes to IOTA, because of the Internet of Things. That's only being more implemented as time go on. Technology is only evolving and becoming more autonomous, which is all part of the Internet of Things. And so I think personally, just from me speaking, in my humble opinion, I think as it continues to grow, I think that's only going to be a leg up for IOTA.
I agree. And I think, again, being that bridge between the physical and the digital, like when we start looking at Web3 and we start looking at digital environments, there is an IoT component, right? You have devices that are running these bits of software in a distributed environment. And I think you need a really powerful network for that. So I love the prospect of kind of sitting right in between that and being a really powerful network for IoT, and then even the devices and the experiences that sit on top of it. To me, that's like incredibly exciting, and I think that's kind of where we're going. And I'm really looking forward to like where kind of IT and like Web3 and virtual environments all converge. And I think that maybe in the past it was difficult to build out these things on IOTA because we didn't have smart contracts, and it was maybe hard to find funding for them or to have your own token in your own universe or ecosystem. But now with smart contracts out in beta, I think people can start tinkering with this, building out these experiences, and really continue to evolve and add more dimension to what's capable and what's possible in the network. So I think we'll see a lot of that. I think we'll see a lot more consumer-facing functionality and applications start to spring up in the next couple weeks and months.
And so to do a quick recap, kind of what we covered, kind of about the key details of smart contracts for people that may have came on the stream later. And before we go into it, if you haven't smashed the like button, definitely helps the stream reach out more people. Definitely smash the like button if you haven't. But a quick recap of what we covered about the key details of smart contracts is it allows other blockchains to pretty much build smart contracts on top of layer 2, which can make it feeless depending on how they write the smart contract. It opens up the entire metaverse for IOTA. We have NFTs, we have gamings, tokenization of digital assets, stable coins. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And so is there anything that you would want to say to anyone with this new release for the ISCP for IOTA?
No, I'm incredibly excited. I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I'm really looking forward to, I think just seeing IOTA being more part of the conversation, right? I think a lot of times you'll hear people say, what's IOTA been up to the last couple of years? I know they've been really heads down, and we've been heads down. We've been building, no hype. We really wanted to just to get our tech right, and now I think we're starting to come up for air, and I think you're starting to see us be talked about more and be part of these active conversations in the crypto space, where the innovation is, where things are going, and all these application layer projects, and whether it's like I don't know, like Twitter personalities or active builders, like come take a look at what we're doing. Like look at our tooling. It's early, but there's always something to be said for coming in early at the ground floor of something. So if you've got a cool project, fork it and start playing around. If you are like multi-chain or cross-chain, consider incorporating the IOTA virtual machine. I'm sorry, the Ethereum virtual machine. If it's if you're working on EVMs. And we've got a huge community that is looking for this functionality, and they really want to support good projects that really want to make a difference. So I'm incredibly excited about that, and I think our releases are now speaking for themselves. So play around with the tooling, start your own chain, and have some fun.
And so, if we have any other questions, go ahead and put it down in the comment section. I think I got one from John, and he says, when will we get digital assets on the main net for IOTA?
I don't know the exact date, Jen. I think if you want to go into our Discord and ask, I think that we've been having some open discussions about that, but I would probably ask some of the more technical team members.
Yeah. And so, of course, I know you're probably going to say yes, but can you maybe elaborate just a tad? Do you see IOTA as a top 10 coin project in the future? And if so, why is that? Currently, IOTA is number 52, according to CoinGecko as we speak. It's around $1.30, give or take. And so, do you see IOTA as a top 10 project?
I mean, I've always seen IOTA as a top project.
Yeah.
I think that's always been our goal, and I think that this is a marathon and not a sprint. And I think that there's a lot of like get rich quick things happening around here. And I think a lot of people that are joining these ecosystems know that, but they're still participating anyway. And I think there's really something to be said for taking your time and building something that is the best that it can be. So, you know, I'm really confident in our tech stack, and I love what we're delivering now. So, again, I think with more activity on the network and with more startups that start coming and building, I think you're gonna, like, you know, you're not gonna have to listen to us anymore making the case for why we're great. Like, you'll start to see other teams that are building on us love what we're doing, and I think that's really gonna just expand the conversation, right? I think there's going to be a lot more people talking about us and wanting to use us and build us because they see that we're long-term and we're sustainable, right? We weren't some VC coin, and we weren't just like, you know, a pump and dump. Like we really are a sustainable long-term project.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think for anyone investing in, you know, projects like IOTA, you got to have a lot of patience, because what we're going after is truly changing the world, you know, so that has to take time to unfold and develop, you know what I mean, before IOTA can really see its true potential unfold. And so when we look at some of the give and takes, I think that's one of the gives you have to give for holding IOTA, is being a little bit more patient, you know, if you're investing now. But with that being said, I think for people that are early, that are investors like myself and other people watching the stream, that allows us to be prepared for the unexpected to happen, because you never know, you know, with crypto, when something just shoots up, right? And for us that already believes in the tech, believes in the project, believes in the team, and the community is phenomenal, one of the strongest communities in crypto, you can just tell from Twitter itself. With that being said, I think, you know, you just got to have a lot of patience when you see what a project is actually going after and what that can truly mean in the future.
Yep.
And so is there anything else that you would like to tell the community about IOTA, rather smart contracts, rather it's the project in general, before we get out of here?
No, just I'm going to try and do a better, I mean, for everyone in the community that's listening, but also newer people that are maybe looking. I'm also going to really kind of try and take it on to share a lot of these insights about the kind of the crypto space in general, where it's going, so we can all be, you know, better educated and see where opportunities are, whether that's decentralized autonomous organizations like DAOs, whether it's play to earn gaming opportunities. You know, we should ideally have some, like, we should try to get some like gaming studios building on using our smart contract work. You know, I think privacy is going to be a really, really big, interesting play, like pre-fi, which is privacy fi, like a play on that. And I think, I know it's kind of hokey, but I think a lot of the work in like digital environments, the M word that I'm not allowed to say yet, or say a lot of, I think that's also kind of a really big area space for us. And so I think just kind of being cognizant of where those innovations are, how we can take advantage of them, and how we can target those next billion users that I think are going to be coming in through these environments. I think that's really, really exciting.
Yeah. Well, man, first and foremost, I just want to say thanks for coming on the channel. Of course, we're going to do this again in the future when we got more big updates coming on with IOTA. And so for anyone that maybe want to connect with you, Dan, because you do post stuff about IOTA, of course, and just crypto in general, where can they follow you? Where can they connect with Dan Simerman?
Yeah, I'm usually scheming on Twitter. So you can find me it's Dan Simerman, and you know, I'll post a lot about IOTA updates, but then I'm kind of trying to be a little broader in my scope and kind of talk more about the crypto industry in general, because I think that's starting to become more and more important for me to do. So I'd say that's probably the best. And then if you want to come into our Discord or IOTA Discord, I'm usually lurking there. And if you ping me, I'll come say hi.
Cool. And one last question before we get out of here, Dan. I think this is actually a pretty good question. He says, John says, foundation members, he said, are IOTA foundation members building projects based on IOTA outside of their jobs? And I don't know if he means this, but I'm wondering, does he mean, is IOTA basically making jobs for, you know, the public, besides making jobs just for the IOTA blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to ask some of the foundation members. We've got a pretty massive foundation at this point. I mean, I think there are some people that are encouraged. I think what we'll probably see with smart contracts is that maybe some groups kind of go off and build out new projects. I think we've got such a big community already that I think that's just going to happen organically in the community. I know that there are some really cool other projects like 𝗓𝗓, like a private search engine that's using, I believe, IOTA. So yeah, I'm not really quite sure how to answer that, other than the goal is that the IOTA Foundation supports as many groups as we can, whether that's for profit or nonprofit.
Yeah. Well, man, Dan, we unpacked a lot in this video. Yeah. The playback will definitely be available. I want to say thanks for everyone, tuning into the stream. Head over, give Dan a follow. Dan Simerman, from Head of Financials from the IOTA team. Very knowledgeable. I want to say thanks again for coming on. Thanks everyone for tuning into the stream. And we'll see you guys back on the next one.